Why did they investigate him only after they believed him? Part 2. The Cult of Carbonation. The strangest part about the documentary isn't that people followed Nature Boy. The strangest part is how many exit signs the mind ignored on the way there. This episode keeps trying to frame the story like the danger suddenly appeared later. Like one day everybody was just living in paradise and then suddenly everything turned dark. But that's not what actually happened. The structure was visible from the very beginning. I am God. I am the Messiah. Leave your family. Fight the system. Women should submit. Cut people off. You belong to me. Those are not subtle clues. Those are giant, illuminated psychological exit signs. But when the mind already believes salvation exists at the destination, red flags stop looking like warnings and start looking like obstacles. That's why the title of this episode matters so much. Why did they investigate him only after they believed him? Because before belief, information is evaluated. After belief, information is filtered. That's the mechanism. And this is why this documentary is so much bigger than Nature Boy. Take Nature Boy out and replace him with a politician, a preacher, a guru, a movement, an influencer, a relationship, a social media ideology, and the same structure appears again. The names change, the mechanism doesn't. One of the deepest metaphors in this episode is actually the airport. Not Belize, not Costa Rica, not the jungle. The airport. Because psychologically, the entire episode is about departure. Watching video after video after video, emotionally investing, cutting off family, applying for the passport, buying the ticket, boarding the plane, crossing borders. The documentary keeps presenting this like people were leaving one life for another. But they never left one life for another. The same thoughts boarded the plane. The same fears boarded the plane. The same need for belonging boarded the plane. The same belief that somewhere else contained salvation boarded the plane. That's why the paradise eventually collapsed. Not because beaches aren't beautiful, not because nature is fake, not because community is impossible, but because unresolved perception recreates itself everywhere it goes. Same interpreter, new scenery. The cult was never the destination. The cult was the continuation of the same unquestioned mind. That's why the fight the system language is so fascinating too. Nobody ever defined what the system actually was. It just became a giant emotional container people dumped all dissatisfaction into. Loneliness became the system. Confusion became the system. Lack of purpose became the system. Financial struggle became the system. Identity conflict became the system. And once the system becomes the enemy, whoever claims to offer escape from it automatically starts looking like liberation itself. But the irony is devastating. They didn't escape systems. They traded one system for another. Hierarchy, rules, ranks, punishments, restricted movement, controlled relationships, food hierarchy, speech patterns, sleep deprivation, permission structures, submission rituals. That's a system. In many ways, an even more rigid one. The issue was never structure itself. The issue was who controlled meaning within the structure. That's why the rebellion itself became another form of dependence. They didn't transcend authority. They relocated it. And that's what makes the multiple jumping-off points idea so important. Because there were exits everywhere. Exit here, exit here, exit here. Before the plane ticket, before Belize, before the tents, before the hierarchy, before the abuse escalated. The documentary accidentally reveals something psychologically terrifying. The mind with a predetermined emotional destination stops wanting discernment, because discernment threatens desire. Research becomes inconvenient. Questions become negativity. Concern becomes persecution. Family becomes the system. And every warning sign gets reinterpreted as proof that the mission must be important. That's why hindsight always looks intelligent. After collapse, everybody suddenly becomes an investigator. Now everybody sees the manipulation. Now everybody recognizes the cult tactics. Now everybody notices the contradictions. But before the emotional investment, before the fantasy fused with identity, the mind wasn't looking for truth, it was looking for confirmation. And this is the part people don't want to confront. These were not unintelligent people. These were people capable of getting passports, capable of buying international plane tickets, capable of relocating countries away from their families, capable of reorganizing their finances, capable of building entirely new lives around an idea. That's what makes this documentary uncomfortable, because it destroys the illusion that only stupid people fall into these dynamics. No, emotionally dissatisfied people do. People searching for meaning do. People searching for belonging do. People searching for transformation do. People exhausted with ordinary life do. And when those unmet psychological needs meet certainty, charisma, identity, purpose, community, and the promise of elsewhere, discernment can quietly collapse underneath emotional momentum. That's why the most dangerous cult isn't the one that controls people by force. It's the one that convinces people they surrendered voluntarily. Because as far as anybody can tell, Nature Boy never physically forced these people onto airplanes. He appeared as an image on a screen. Words came out of his mouth. Those words were interpreted. Meaning was assigned to them. Enough meaning to leave families. Enough meaning to buy tickets. Enough meaning to cross oceans. Enough meaning to abandon previous identities. Enough meaning to reinterpret red flags as spiritual tests. That is the real power being exposed in this documentary. Not mind control, meaning control. And once the mind becomes emotionally attached to a meaning, it will often defend the fantasy long after reality starts contradicting it. That's why belief did not begin in Belize. Belize was simply where the belief arrived physically. And maybe that's the deepest warning hidden underneath this entire documentary. If the mind investigated only after it believed once, how many other things is it still defending the exact same way today?